Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode number 2 of our Through the Bible in 5 Minutes series. Today, we are talking about Genesis chapter 2. As always, the handouts that are associated with these studies are available for free on our website at tobelikechrist.com. And if you're watching this at a later date, it's a very good chance that the hard copy book is out. I'll try to include the link to that down below as well. So let's get into this. When did the events of Genesis chapter 2 take place? Well, in Genesis chapter 1, we discussed the creation of the world. Genesis chapter 2 gives us some additional insights into the creation and what God was up to during that time. God's creation of the world marks the beginning of time as we know it, and so these events happened in the beginning, just like Genesis 1:1 says. Who are the main characters? Well, there aren't very many people on the earth because God's only created a few, and so our main characters consist of God, the creator of the universe, of earth, of animals, man, and woman. And then we have the first man. We find out that his name was Adam. God created man from the dust of the ground. And then lastly, we have the first woman, who we're going to find out her name is Eve. God created her from a rib that was taken from the side of the man. Geographically speaking, where did the events of Genesis 2 take place? Well, God created the first man and woman, and he put them in a garden in the east of Eden, according to chapter 2, verse 8. No one knows for sure where God planted this garden. Our best hint comes from the names of the 4 rivers that flowed out of Eden. They are the Pishon, the Gihon, the Tigris, and the Euphrates. So having discussed the when, the who, and the where, let's talk about the outline of the chapter now. Our first section, verses 1 through 3, discusses day number 7. So after finishing all of his creative work in 6 days, God rested on the 7th day, and he made it a special day. He blessed the 7th day, and he made it holy. Verses 4 through 7 then discuss the creation of man, the male human being specifically. Chapter 1 briefly mentioned it, but we get some more details here. Man was created from the dust of the ground. God used that to form him, and then God gave him a soul by breathing life into his nostrils. The next section describes the Garden of Eden, where this man was placed on the earth. This is verses 8 through 17. So God planted a garden in the east of Eden, the text says, and put the man in it. God caused all kinds of trees to grow in the garden, and he put 2 special trees in the middle of the garden, the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The garden is described as having 4 rivers that flowed out of it, and we just briefly mentioned these previously, but they were the Pishon, the Gihon River, the Tigris River, and the Euphrates River. God told the man that he could eat from every tree in the garden except for the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then our final section, verses 18 through 25, the creation of woman and the naming of all the animals. So if you ever wondered why the platypus is called the platypus, this will explain it to you. God saw that the man was alone, and that wasn't good. He needed a companion. And all of the animals were brought to the man, and he named each of them. But none of them were a suitable lifetime companion for him. So God caused the man to fall asleep, and while he slept, God took one of the ribs from his side, and with it he formed a woman. And the woman was the perfect companion for the man. God designed men and women to leave their parents and to be joined to one another in companionship as one flesh. The Bible also tells us something interesting, and that was that the man and the woman were naked. They didn't have any clothes in the garden, and there was no shame in that. And so that is Genesis 2. It gives us some more details after the creation story of Genesis 1. Now let's talk about an application before we finish. God created the union between man and woman. A man is the perfect companion for a woman, and vice versa, according to the God who created us. Marriage is an institution that is designed and defined by God. We see that from the very beginning of the Bible, all the way back when human history begins. Marriage is not a man-made institution that can be redefined by laws or by popular opinion. And of course, you'll know that there are many people who are trying to do that today. Right? So it's important to emphasize this point. This is something that is created and defined by God.